See the writing? Look at that. See the background writing on the sing along with it? Very cute. There it is. Praises we say how they write that. They've got a special font that makes it look like handwriting. They got amazing. It's a real whole production they have at Hillsong. But the problem with these kind of big churches, of course, they're state-run. They have a lot of ties to federal bureaucracies and the power structure. So they actually can't speak out against. In Korea, too, we have the biggest mega churches in the world. But they're all state-run. They're all controlled by the state. You have to teach a pro-state message, otherwise you start getting shut down. It's just a fact that people who sing and perform very well, like in terms of music, they have very fast nunchi. In Korea, we'll call it nunchi. Nunchi is the ability to read the situation very well. They have to feel the audience. They have to, they have to come in and like spontaneously, say things and stuff like that. They have to be able to feel the audience and read. How do they say? Read the crowd very well, right? Kind of. I guess how do you say it in English? How would you translate that? Nunchi.
Well, I've never found a good translation.
Kind of ability to sense, right, the atmosphere and some of that, and then react well to that atmosphere, things like that. But the problem with those kind of people is they're usually way more emotional. Usually, I'm talking on average, way more emotional and not clear-headed. They're not level-headed. So they follow their emotions. They follow the feeling of the song. They follow the atmosphere of the song. And they don't hold strong to logic, rationale. They're not calm many times in a storm. And so they're not, there's of course exceptions, but they're usually not good, real leaders that can lead strong men. And they're not. And there's a problem with people who just do music. And if they become the leadership, they literally, because music in general is emotive, right? It's emotive, it touches emotions. They're in that whole emotional realm, that's where they reside. It's so easy to become a relativist. And, that's why these guys need a pastor. The pastor here in Hillsong does not do the music ministry. He teaches the music ministry. He trains the music ministry to make sure these kids recognize and remember that it's not about them or the performance. It's about bringing joy to God. People's always ask me, why the Second King don't sing songs? I don't do it on purpose, just like I don't show off my martial arts skills on purpose. I don't do it. I don't want to show off and create the atmosphere in a church. That is what leadership is about. That is what being loyal to God is about, is just being a great performer. That's bullcrap. You know what I'm saying? That's why I don't do that. Even though I have, as everybody knows, I know I can sing well. I'm not the best singer in the world, but I can sing well. I can sing better than a normal person. That I know. But I don't have to show off that skill. You know what I mean? I don't have to show it off. Because I've seen what happens to people who try to show that off. I've seen my own brothers and my own family. I'm the youngest. I have the blessing of being the youngest, seeing all the failures. And it's just, when you actually get deluded enough to thinking that you're an actual music star, that's what I saw with Preston, for example. He got deluded. He thought he was a music star, and all the kids loved his singing. Give me a break. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But at least I could see through that and say, that's totally ridiculous. I'm not going to follow down that road. So that was a good example. I'm not going to follow down the road and pretend I'm some kind of rock star. We're a religious movement. You know what I'm saying? So it's so stupid. But look what happened to him. He became a complete failure. He became a complete dishonorable, lying thief from his own father. So it's very... That's what happens. That's what happens when you go down that road of narcissism and egoism. And music can really drive you and suck you into that. That's why, of course, when I raise the young people and I raise the third king, I remind them of that trap. Music is a very... Young people, since they're still stupid and ignorant and unexperienced, they will see this and say, oh, if I had that skill of singing well, then everybody would just listen to me. Everybody would just follow me, because look how they're hoo-haing and applauding these people who can sing well. You're an idiot if you think that. You're a stupid idiot. Really talented people, when they see singers and things like that, they're actually worried. Did you know that? They actually do not trust you. They watch you very close. People who actually know how to really lead. They're not impressed by you if you can sing well. All you are is a minstrel. You're not a general. You're not a captain. You're a minstrel. You're a freaking bard in the back playing music for the troops. You're not a leader just because you can sing well. This is what people don't realize. Just because you can lead people to sing well doesn't mean you can actually lead well in battle, in spiritual warfare, in leadership. And that's why I don't sing a lot in public, even though I sing a lot in private, or sometimes I'll occasionally sing, but I don't make it about the singing, because then the young, dumb children who are still inexperienced and ignorant think that leadership is singing well and like being able to move a crowd. That's bullcrap. That's total bullcrap. Leadership is not about moving a crowd. It's about speaking the truth when it's unpopular and being hated and mocked and scorned like Jesus Christ and true Father. Do you understand? That's leadership. It's not being scared of the public. It's not being scared of the guilt-shaming Satanists. It's about pushing through adversity and tribulation, because that's what's hard to do. Not singing some stupid song and controlling a crowd. That's freaking easy. And that's why when these, quote, artists become in power, because they're so trained to think that people are stupid and they can move crowds just by their artistic talents, they try to do that in government. Okay, enough of this. All right, enough of this. But then they try to do that in government, and then they literally think people are so stupid that they can be moved like herds and crowds. It's so insulting. And that's why people are actually talented. When they see a very talented musician who's trying to show off and really singing, like, trying to get attention for themselves, it's a complete red alert sign that this person is, you gotta watch this person. That's what people don't understand, especially young people. Singing well doesn't mean crap. It doesn't mean anything. Now, you're made to believe that it's everything because you have shows that brainwash you to believe that, oh, if you just were on American Idol and you just won that star, then you would have that amazing life. Everybody would cheer for you. You see all those stars who fell, who faded away, who the public spits out. They're not loyal to you. You think those produce loyalty if you don't sleep with them? They're not loyal. They'll throw you out and toss you out like garbage. And this is, of course, a lot of people in Hollywood, and as it becomes exposed, put up on networks, etc., that becomes exposed, and now young people can realize, wow, that's the fakeness of the music business. It's fake. And the beautiful thing about gospel performance is that people will buy your CD if you're a gospel artist if they feel that you really love God, if they feel you have real passion in your heart for God. It's not about just how well you can sing. People in the Christian community, at least, want to see that you match up with your singing, at least somewhat. And that's one thing good about gospel. It holds the singers a little more accountable, obviously, than the secular world, which doesn't hold them accountable to anything. They can do whatever the hell they want and be promoted by the producers and their stupid, 3-second editors, 3-second editing teams, which use that as a technique to keep brains attached. And that's why the godly side has to use that too. We have to use high-level videography, editing, some of that, to push the message of sovereignty. That's been the weakness of God's side. is that they've not been able to do that thing. But the problem is the artists are not the leaders. They are the followers. They are the encouragers. They're not the leaders. Artists, on average, are pathetic leaders when it comes to real leadership. They're so pathetic because they're scared of being hated by the crowd. Because their whole business, their whole life is centered around being loved by the crowd and being applauded by the crowd. They're scared of the crowd. Whereas real leaders and prophets are not scared of the crowd. They'll be hated, mocked, and scorned like the prophet Isaiah. They'll be hated, mocked, and scorned like the Lord Jesus Christ. They'll be hated, mocked, and scorned like the Lord of Second Advent when he comes to smite the nations with a rod of iron. He's not going to be adored. Leadership is not just about singing a stupid song and having the crowd hoo and ha and woo and wow, it's amazing. No, that's so ephemeral, it's so fake, it's so transient, it's so shallow. But of course, there is a place in the church for beautiful music that praises God. That is an important part, but it is not the center. Ministerial leadership, prophetic leadership, pastoral leadership, organizational leadership does not start there. That is, the music ministry part is actually a very small part of the church. And it's unfortunate if I don't know about this church so well. I mean, I don't watch their service or anything. I mean, I just know that they can't really preach a strong gospel because they'll probably be shut down in Australia. If he starts talking about that pastor started talking about gun rights and sovereignty rights and king and queen rights, don't they have a queen? They do have a queen. They worship. They actually have a legal Britain, the UK queen.
They're part of the Commonwealth, yes.
They're part of the UK, yes. So they actually have a queen. So they can't call her out as a Satanist. If the pastor did that, I would quickly assume that the people would start leaving his church. So in that scenario, you are basically pressured to be a leftist church. You may be right from left a little bit. You may be closer to the center, but you're center left. And you have to be. And look at the Korean churches too. They have to do that as well. They're state run. They cannot be talking about gun rights. They cannot be talking about sovereignty rights. They cannot talk about armed civilian class. They cannot be talking about kingly rights for the normal citizen. They can't. They have to keep the slaves and put on little music performances and music productions to keep everybody entranced in their slavehood, being ruled on by politicians. When you see the politicians and they look at this kind of services, they say, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That'll keep the people under wraps. Yeah. They're not scared. The establishment is not scared of this, even though Hillsong is, wonderful. They produce wonderful gospel music. The establishment is not scared. Satan's kingdoms are not trembling at this church. They're not trembling. They're laughing because this church is going to deal with the politicians. It's going to be in the pocket of the federal bureaucracies. Go ahead, put the images of that church out when I'm talking about it. But don't turn on the volume so we can see it. No, there you go. It's not saying that these people are bad people or anything. It's just the nature of the state that they live in. They live in a totally controlled state, Australia, being a very controlled state. It's a disarmed state. It's a slave caste state, even though they believe they're free. They're not. They are second-class citizens. The rulers of their nation can live in totally different realities. You see this? The rulers can have armed bodyguards. The rulers can have access to whatever they want. These churches keep the people as slaves, even though they produce very nice music. So you mustn't get bamboozled by the sparkly glitter and the sparkly, the shiny stage shows. Because after that, show is all done, the lights go off, and everybody has to go home and pack up their bags. You're not allowed to speak out against the establishment. You see that? Now, wouldn't it be great if we were able to be free, to be kings and queens and sovereigns, and have the rights of defense and power. Oh, and in China, for example, the federal bureaucracy can't go over 10%, and the people are owners of property. They're the owners of the land. They're the ones who have actual kingly rights. And then we can have beautiful performances like this. It's going to be even better because these things will reflect our true expression and true nature. We won't be scared of crowds. You see what I'm saying? So we'll have all this. We'll have all this and more in China Go, but we will not be ruled by commies. We will not be ruled by artists posing and working for major conglomerates and George Soros funding, like Brad Pitt pushing communism. We won't work for those fools. And those kind of fools will be quickly taken down because they won't represent the actual citizen who is a king and queen of his territory. And a true king and queen is not going to be impressed by some fancy singer. When you have real power and you have real ownership, you're not impressed by a singer. You're not going to be bamboozled by a singer. You see? That doesn't mean you're not going to appreciate singers, but you're not going to worship a singer. Okay. Hey, we got Chief here. All right, folks, let's take a quick break on this Christmas special, and we'll be right back after this. Stay with us.